Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into the Gospel of Matthew today, specifically chapter 8.
Oh, Matthew chapter 8. It's chock full of encounters with Jesus,
Yeah.
each one more revealing than the last.
It's like a crash course in faith and discipleship, all packed into one chapter.
Right. It's amazing how much depth there is in these stories, even though they're pretty short.
Yeah, like that story with Jesus healing the man with leprosy. It really struck me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, leprosy back then, it wasn't just a disease. It was like a social death sentence.
Exactly. Imagine being cast out, totally isolated, considered untouchable. That was their reality.
And then in the middle of all that, this man approaches Jesus. Can you imagine the courage it took?
It's incredible. He says, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. So much desperation and hope in those words.
And Jesus.
Yeah.
He doesn't hesitate at all. He just reaches out.
And touches him. It gives me chills every time I read that part.
Right. I mean, this is someone who's been shunned for years, and Jesus touches him. It's
Ugh.
radical.
It's like he's saying, your illness doesn't define you. You are worthy of my love and healing.
Totally. And then there's that little detail that always gets me. Jesus tells him to show himself to the priest.
Oh, and to offer a gift, just like Moses commanded.
Exactly. It shows that Jesus wasn't trying to abolish the Jewish law. He was fulfilling it.
It adds a whole other layer to the story, doesn't it? It's not just about the miracle, it's about deeper meaning.
Yes. It's like he's bridging the gap between the old ways and the new, between law and grace.
So powerful. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. We've got this Roman centurion coming up next.
Oh, the centurion. Now that's an interesting one. He's a man of authority, a representative of the Roman Empire.
And he's asking Jesus to heal his servant.
What strikes me is his humility. He says, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof.
But only speak the word, and my servant will be healed. He gets it. He understands authority.
He used this military analogy, saying he's under authority too, and his soldiers obey him without question.
It's like he's saying, I know how this works. Your word is all it takes.
And Jesus is blown away by it. He says, I have not found so great faith. No, not in Israel.
That's a huge statement coming from Jesus, especially considering he's in the heart of Israel.
It opens up this whole idea of the universality of Jesus's message. It's not just for one group of people.
It's for anyone who recognizes his authority and puts their faith in him.
Exactly. And this theme just keeps going. Next, we're at Peter's house, and there's a whole bunch of healings happening.
First, it's Peter's mother-in-law. She's sick with a fever, and Jesus just touches her hand, and boom, she's healed.
And it's immediate. She's not just a little better, she's completely well. And then she gets up and starts serving them.
I love that detail. It shows the completeness of her healing. She's not just physically well, she's ready to serve.
It's like she's got this newfound energy, this new lease on life.
So inspiring. But the healings don't stop there. People are bringing all sorts of people to Jesus, the sick, the possessed.
It's like a parade of suffering, and Jesus just heals them all.
It says he heals them all with a word and casts out spirits with just his voice. It's incredible.
This passage always reminds me of Isaiah's prophecy. Himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses.
Yeah, it's like we're seeing a glimpse of the Messianic age right here.
But then things take a bit of a turn. We go from these amazing healings to this section about the cost of following Jesus.
It's almost like a reality check. The crowds are growing, and Jesus decides to head to the other side of the lake.
But before he goes, two people approach him, and their encounters are so revealing.
The first is a scribe, and he's super enthusiastic. He says, Master, I will follow you wherever you go.
Sounds pretty committed, right? But then Jesus gives him this unexpected response.
He says, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head.
Whoa. Talk about a reality check. He's basically saying, following me means embracing a life of sacrifice.
It's like he's saying, are you sure you're ready for this? Because it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that following Jesus isn't about comfort or worldly gain. It's about something much deeper.
And then we have this disciple who asks to bury his father before following Jesus.
Which seems totally reasonable, right? Honoring your parents was a big deal back then.
But then Jesus says, follow me and let the dead bury their dead. It's a tough one, I'll admit.
It's definitely a head-scratcher. There are a few ways to interpret it, though.
Like some scholars say it's about the urgency of Jesus's call. Discipleship requires immediate action.
Right. It's about prioritizing following Jesus above everything else, even deeply ingrained cultural norms.
So it's not about disrespecting parents. It's about understanding that there's a higher calling at play.
Exactly. Others see it as a challenge to conventional thinking about who's truly dead, those who are physically dead or spiritually unawakened.
Oh, I see. So in that interpretation, Jesus is calling the disciple to a life that transcends earthly concerns.
Right. It's about spiritual awakening and putting that above everything else.
That adds a whole other level of depth to the idea of discipleship.
It does, doesn't it? It's not just about saying yes to Jesus. It's about a radical transformation.
It affects everything about how you live your life. Your priorities, your understanding of the world, everything.
And this theme of unexpected challenges, well, it just keeps going. We're headed to the Sea of Galilee next, where the disciples are caught in a crazy storm.
Oh man, that story. The imagery is so vivid. The waves are crashing, the boat's being tossed around, and the disciples are terrified.
It's a scene that's so relatable, isn't it? Those moments when life just feels completely overwhelming.
Totally. Like, we've all been in those situations where it feels like we're about to be swallowed up by the storm.
And you know what's wild? In the middle of all that chaos, Jesus is sound asleep.
I know, right? You'd think he'd be at least a little bit concerned, but nope, he's just snoozing away.
It's almost like he's completely unfazed by it. Like he's got this unwavering peace that we can't even comprehend.
And then the disciples wake him up, panicking, saying, Lord, save us. We're gonna die.
They're at their wit's end, convinced it's all over. But Jesus, in his calmness, simply asks, "Why are you fearful, O ye of little faith?"
It's like a gentle but firm nudge, isn't it? Come on, guys, where's your trust in me?
He's calling them to a deeper level of faith, one that isn't shaken by external circumstances. And then, boom, he rebukes the wind and the sea, and everything goes calm.
Just like that. It's such a powerful image of his authority over nature. And I think it speaks to something deeper, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about those storms we all face in life, the anxieties, the uncertainties, the things that make us feel like we're drowning.
And Jesus is showing us that he has the power to calm those storms, too, but we have to trust him.
That's the key, isn't it? Trust. It's a message we all need to hear, especially when we're going through tough times.
Okay, well, I'm ready for the final story. The one with the two demon-possessed men in the country of the Gergesenes. This one always sends chills down my spine.
Oh yeah, this one is intense. It deals with some heavy stuff. Spiritual darkness, the power of evil, the reality of suffering.
Matthew describes these men as being exceeding fierce and living among the tombs.
Which would have been a super creepy and unclean place back then.
And what's even more disturbing is that people were afraid to even go near them. Imagine the torment these guys were enduring.
It's heartbreaking, right? And it speaks to the fact that sometimes people are battling forces we can't even begin to understand.
And yet when they see Jesus, they recognize him immediately as the Son of God.
It's like even in their tormented state, some part of them still knows the truth.
It's almost like the darkness recognizes the light, even if it can't fully comprehend it.
Exactly. And then there's that strange detail about the herd of pigs nearby.
Yeah, what was that all about? Why pigs? It's such a weird and unsettling detail.
Right. So the demons are terrified of Jesus, and they beg him to be sent into the pigs instead.
It's a bizarre request for sure. What do you make of it?
Well, some scholars believe it shows how desperate the demons are to escape Jesus' authority. They'd rather be in animals than face him directly.
And Jesus allows it to happen.
He does. And the pigs run off a cliff and drown in the sea. It's such a dramatic and disturbing image.
It definitely raises a lot of questions about the nature of evil, free will, and the consequences of spiritual choices. What do you think the main takeaway is?
For me, it highlights the fact that the spiritual realm is real. There are forces at work that we might not always understand, but ultimately Jesus has authority over all of it.
He's the one who can bring healing and restoration, even in the darkest of situations.
Exactly. But then we get this twist. Instead of being grateful, the townspeople are actually frightened by Jesus' power.
I know, they're so freaked out that they actually ask him to leave their region.
It's a powerful reminder that not everyone is ready to embrace Jesus' message, even when they see undeniable miracles.
Sometimes fear and misunderstanding can be so strong that they lead to rejection.
It's a sad reality, but it's something we see even today. People rejecting truth because it's inconvenient or challenges their worldview.
It's a reminder that faith requires us to be willing to step outside our comfort zones and to embrace the unknown.
Even when it's scary or challenging. And that's something we'll see even more clearly as we continue our deep dive in the next episode.
I can't wait. This has been fascinating. Thanks for joining us today, and be sure to tune in next time as we continue exploring Matthew chapter 8.
It's going to be a wild ride. So we left off talking about how following Jesus isn't always a walk in the park.
No kidding. It's like sometimes he throws you right into a hurricane.
Exactly. And the next story is the perfect example. Jesus and the disciples are out on the Sea of Galilee and...
Boom. Huge storm hits, like waves crashing over the boat, wind howling, the whole 9 yards.
And the disciples, they are freaking out. They're seasoned fishermen,
Yeah.
but this storm, it's got them terrified.
I mean, I'd be terrified too. But Jesus, he's just sleeping through it all. Can you believe that?
I know, it's almost comical, isn't it? But it really highlights the difference between human fear and divine peace.
Like, we humans, we panic when things get rough. But Jesus, he's got this unshakable trust in God.
And it's that trust, that faith, that gives him this incredible peace even in the middle of a raging storm.
The disciples, though, they're not there yet. They're running around like, Lord, save us, we're gonna die.
They're totally focused on the physical danger, on the storm itself.
But Jesus, he sees something deeper.
He sees their lack of faith. He says to them, "Why are you so afraid? Where is your faith?"
It's like a gentle reminder, guys, I'm right here with you. You don't need to freak out.
He's calling them to trust him, to have faith that he's got this.
And then to really drive the point home, he does something incredible. He just speaks to the wind and the waves.
And everything stops. The storm just vanishes. Poof, like it never even happened.
Talk about a power move. It's such a powerful image of his authority over nature.
But it's more than just that, right? It's a metaphor for the storms we all face in life. The anxieties, the fears, the uncertainties.
Absolutely. And Jesus is showing us that he has the power to calm those storms too, if we let him.
If we trust him enough to let go of our fear and let him take control. Exactly. It's a message we all need to hear, especially when we're going through tough times.
Okay, so from a raging storm, we go to, well, a different kind of chaos. The story with the demon-possessed men in the country of the Gergesenes. This one always creeps me out a little.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more intense stories in this chapter. Matthew doesn't hold back on the details either.
He describes these men as being exceedingly fierce, living among the tombs like something out of a nightmare.
And people were terrified of them, so much so that they avoided that whole area.
You can just imagine the torment these men were going through. It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And it makes you wonder what kind of battles they were fighting. Battles we can't even see.
And yet, even in their tormented state, they recognize Jesus instantly. They know who he is.
It's like even in the darkest depths of their suffering, some part of them still recognizes the light.
And then there's that whole thing with the pigs. That part always throws me off.
The demons begged Jesus to send them into the pigs instead.
Why pigs? Of all things, why pigs?
It's a strange detail, right? It kind of makes your skin crawl a little. But there are a few ways to interpret it.
Lay it on me.
Well, some scholars see it as the demons trying to escape Jesus. They're terrified of him, so they'd rather be in animals than face his judgment.
But why would Jesus allow that? It seems kind of cruel, both to the demons and the pigs.
It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. Some say he might be illustrating the power of evil, how it seeks to destroy and corrupt everything it touches.
Others say it might be symbolic of the spiritual battle that's always raging around us.
Exactly, and that we're not always aware of. But the point is, Jesus has authority over it all.
He has the power to bind the forces of darkness, even if it means allowing for temporary suffering.
It's a reminder that we're not in control. There are things at work in the spiritual realm that we don't fully understand.
So then we get to the reaction of the townspeople, and it's not what you'd expect.
You'd think they'd be celebrating, right? Jesus just healed these tormented men. But instead, they're scared.
And they ask Jesus to leave. They basically reject him and his power.
It's a sobering reminder that not everyone is open to the truth, even when it's right in front of them.
Sometimes fear and misunderstanding are just too strong.
Exactly. And sometimes people are just too comfortable in their own little worlds to embrace something that might challenge them.
It's a tough lesson, but an important one.
It is. And it's a theme that we see throughout the Gospels. The rejection of Jesus, even by those who should have known better.
So we've got these amazing displays of power and compassion, but we also have these stark reminders of the cost of following Jesus.
And the reality that not everyone will be on board with his message.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
Mm.
But it's also a reminder that faith isn't always easy or comfortable.
It's about trusting Jesus, even when things get messy and confusing.
And being willing to step out in faith,
Yeah.
even when we don't have all the answers.
Man, this deep dive into Matthew 8 has been something else, hasn't it?
It really has. We've covered a lot of ground, that's for sure.
From healing lepers and calming storms to casting out demons, Jesus really covered it all in this chapter.
He did, didn't he? And it's not just the variety of miracles, it's the way he performed them that's so striking.
Yeah, like with authority. He heals with a touch, a word, a command. It's like he's in complete control.
It's like he's peeling back the layers of reality, showing us that there's more going on than we can see.
And he's inviting us to step into that deeper reality, to trust him, to have faith.
And that's where the challenge comes in, right? Because faith isn't always easy. It requires something from us.
It does, doesn't it? Like, we see that in the story of the scribe who wants to follow Jesus, but then,
But then he hesitates when Jesus talks about having nowhere to lay his head.
yeah, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I signed up for following you, not for being homeless.
It's a reality check for sure. Following Jesus isn't about comfort or worldly success.
It's about something way deeper, about aligning your life with his will, even when it's hard.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And then there's the disciple who wants to bury his father first. Totally understandable request.
You'd think so, right? But Jesus' response, let the dead bury their dead. It's a little jarring, I'll admit.
It is. But it challenges us to think about what it truly means to follow Jesus. What are we willing to prioritize?
Are we willing to put him first, even above our cultural obligations, our family ties? It's a tough question.
It is. But it gets to the heart of discipleship. It's about surrender, about trusting that Jesus knows what's best even when we don't understand.
And I think the story of the storm really illustrates that too. The disciples are panicking, they're afraid.
They're looking at the waves, at the wind, at the immediate danger. They're not seeing the bigger picture.
And then Jesus, calm as can be, just speaks to the storm and it's over.
It's like peace, be still, and the chaos just stops. It's incredible.
It's a powerful reminder that when we focus on our fears, we miss out on the power of Jesus.
When we trust him, when we have faith, he can calm even the most raging storms in our lives.
But even when he does perform these amazing miracles, there's still the possibility of rejection.
Yeah, like with the demon-possessed men. Jesus heals them, sets them free from this terrible torment.
And the townspeople, instead of rejoicing, they're afraid. They ask Jesus to leave.
It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? You'd think they'd be throwing a party, but they're more focused on their fear.
Their fear of the unknown, of what they don't understand, they're not ready to embrace the power of Jesus.
And that's something we see even today, right? People rejecting truth because it's inconvenient or challenges their worldview.
It's a reminder that we can't force anyone to believe. All we can do is share the truth in love.
And trust that God will do the rest.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Matthew 8, what are some final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I think this chapter is a powerful reminder that encountering Jesus always leads to transformation.
It challenges us, it stretches us, it pushes us out of our comfort zones.
But it also fills us with hope and peace. It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles.
That no matter what storms we're facing, Jesus is right there with us, ready to calm the chaos.
And to lead us into a deeper, more meaningful life.
Thanks for joining us today on this incredible journey through Matthew 8. It's been a privilege exploring these stories with you.
It has. And remember, no matter where you are in your faith journey, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deeper.
Because there's always more to discover in the words of Jesus. Until next time, grace and peace to you all.